every time I think Joe Biden can't get any more cringeworthy, he proves me wrong. In a campaign event in Kissimmee, Florida, Biden had a hot sauce in my purse moment, only instead of pulling hot sauce out of his pocket, he pulled out his cell phone and started playing a full few seconds of the song Despacito by Fonsi, weirdly bobbing his head and moving, I don't know, attempting to move some other parts of his body to the beat of the song. Biden then ends the clip and says into the microphone, "I'll tell you what, if I had the talent of any of these people, I'd be elected president by acclamation." I wonder what the singer Fonsi was thinking when Biden said this, because Fonsi actually introduced the candidate. And I wonder if he was actually in on this foolishness. You do hear Fonsi say off to the side, "Dance a little, Joe." Why, Fonsi, why? I wonder why, if Biden's campaign knew that he was going to do this, why didn't they stop him? Did they know he was going to say it? And I really do wonder if these people are trying to scuttle his campaign, if they know he's about to do these things, by letting him look as awful and as out of touch and as paternal and weird as possible, because I swear I don't understand how anyone who is running an actual presidential campaign in 2020 does not get that pandering to voters with the ridiculous logic that they'd vote for you if you had the talent of a popular entertainer would actually win those votes. Hillary Clinton and her hot sauce didn't pull that off. Pete Buttigieg eating fried chicken in the most awkward way possible didn't do it. Kamala Harris saying she listened to Tupac before he actually put out any music didn't do it. I don't know why anybody thought this was a good idea for Biden to do this. It was awful. And it was bad enough that it was done at all, but it was even more awful because the event was supposed to commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month. I seriously do not understand the Biden campaign. I really do think they hate this man. Biden could have come out there and talked about how the very term Hispanic needs to be done away with, since it's an incorrect and frankly imperialist way to identify all people who speak Spanish, regardless of where they're from, whether they're from Mexico or Latin America or Cuba or Brazil. And we can do better to honor people's heritage and cultures than by calling them all by the designation the U.S. government came up with. But he didn't do that. He could have, but he didn't, because we all know he doesn't have that awareness. He could have come out there and talked about commemorating the Mexican War of Independence from Spain that began on September 16, 1810, when Catholic priest Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla read the Grito de Dolores, or the Cry of Dolores, demanding the end to 300 years of Spanish colonization and rule in Mexico. Hidalgo, called the father of Mexican independence, did what so many anti-imperialist leaders have done, called for the end of foreign colonization in their land, called for the redistribution of land, and called for racial equality. Hidalgo's Revolutionary Army of Indians and mestizos marched on Mexico City and was almost successful, but they were defeated by the Spanish at Calderon in January 1811. Hidalgo was executed soon after, but the desire for Mexican independence from Spanish colonists did not die with him. Jose Maria Morelos y Pavón, Mariano Matamoros, and Vicente Guerrero all led revolutionary armies against the Spanish Empire in Mexico in repeated struggles for freedom. And finally, the conservative faction within Mexico, those who were largely of Spanish descent, were able to seize power and promised milquetoast reforms to appease the revolutionaries. But of course, it didn't go as far as to redistribute land and to implement racial equality, because that would interfere with their hold on power. So Mexico was established as an independent constitutional monarchy under Agustín de Iturbide, through which Mexicans of Spanish descent would have equal status as pure Spaniards, and Mexicans identified as Indians, mestizo, and mixed would have lesser status and rights. But Iturbide was deposed in 1823 by Santa Anna and Guadalupe Victoria, who set up a republic and installed Guadalupe Victoria as the first president of an independent Mexico. But Mexico didn't enjoy autonomy for long because in 1846, President James Polk offered the Mexican government $30 million for Mexican territories of California, New Mexico, and land near the disputed southern border of Texas. But Mexican officials rightly refused to even consider it because why should they? It was their land. So Polk sent troops to the Republic of Texas, which was a slaveholding territory that had already sought to be annexed into the U.S., that of course the U.S. wanted so it could expand the slaveholding territory and political influence in Congress for the southern states, to show that Polk intended to take that land even if by force. Mexican forces fired on U.S. troops, and the war of U.S. aggression against Mexico began on April 25, 1846. The U.S. defeated the Mexican army 2 years later in 1848, and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo gave the U.S. the enormous territory that included present-day California, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Wyoming. Mexico also agreed to finally relinquish all of Texas, including the disputed area along the border, in return for just $15 million now, and the U.S. assuming Mexican debts. Now, if Biden really wanted to commemorate Hispanic Heritage Month, he could have talked about some actual history that's important to the demographic he's trying to appeal to in this country, how they came to be a part of this country, and their long and proud history of resistance to imperialism and colonialism. But we can't expect an imperialist like Biden to openly repudiate the U.S. aggression and oppression that is actually the basis of the so-called greatness of this country, and call the policy of manifest destiny that the U.S. was destined by God to occupy wherever it chose, that drove the incursion into Mexico and everywhere else this country has invaded, the murderous injustice that it is. So instead, he takes out his phone and plays Despacito. Yeah, this is where we are. Follow Lukman Nation on patreon.com/LukmanNation for lots of great content.